Hey, everybody, how's it going? We're now live. Before we get going for your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, March 22nd, we would like to thank the following unions for making this show possible. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Big thank you to those unions for jumping on board with us in this. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our dear friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. All right, your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, March 22nd. Oh, my. Hold on. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, March 22nd starts now. Yes, thank goodness it is Friday, March 22nd, and live from the Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with the Chicago Sun-Times' Romana Hussain. We welcome our dear friend and budget guru, Emily Mueller. And we're talking marijuana legalization and more with Illinois State Rep Kelly Cassidy. And now your host. Boy, he loves snapping. Maybe a little too much. Happy Friday, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this No Vote Friday.
Question.
Friday. And here's why. So I watched the mayoral debate yesterday with an old friend. Let's just call her, Barry.
Hi, Barry.
Barry.
If that is your real name.
And when the debate was over, Barry turned to me and said, I am not voting. I was like, what?
Barry?
Huh? I was horrified at the thought. You know, because I've always voted. I've been trained to vote. I've never missed an election. I was taught this by my mother, a lifelong New Deal Democrat. Benny, you're gonna vote. So I always vote. So I said, really? And she explained, no. I'll vote, meaning I'll show up to the polls on election day. And then she explained that she's going to vote for treasurer. She loves a mayor, and she's going to vote for the local alderman and the aldermanic runoff. She loves Matt Martin. But no, she'll leave the mayor's race vacant on the grounds that neither candidate inspires her. Neither seems that much better than the other. Both, Tony and Lori, seem about the same. She has no confidence that one will be markedly different than the other. And more to the point, none will be worse than the other. So it's not like, you know, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump where there's clearly a lesser of two evils. It's, how do you put it, D? Meh. Isn't that how you put it? Meh. Where'd you get that, by the way?
I don't know. It's just a feeling, right? Meh.
Did you get that from Larry David? Wasn't that a Larry David thing?
I don't know.
Meh. Larry David. Meh.
Right, back to Barry. Barry.
Anyway. The thing is, the more people from either camp try to convince her, it doesn't work. It doesn't change her mind. Because, like, one advocate for the other is just about attacking the other one, if you get what I'm saying. So it all just kind of washes out. It all just blends together. And so she says, I'm not going to vote for mayor. And that really blew my mind. I felt like the singer in the song by War, you know, Spill the Wine. It really blew my mind. I felt like I was in a Hollywood movie.
Hang tight, millennials.
I felt like I was the star of the Hollywood. I just had to sing that song. I love that song so much. Anyway, but it did blow my mind. You know, not voting, just sitting it out. Maybe write someone in. You know, although they won't count write-ins anymore. That's a disgrace, by the way. We talk about a blow against democracy. In the old days, you could write someone in. You know, you go up, you show your vote. You don't want to vote for either. You write someone in. What's wrong with that? Bring that back, all right? Anyway.
Bring it back.
I absolutely urge everyone to show up on April 2nd or even early voting. Make sure you vote. It's a right you have. You got to take advantage of it, folks. But that means even if you end up writing in none of the above. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain. Man, people love Rummana Hussain on the Ben Joravsky Show. Every Friday, she shows up with the weekly Rummana Rundown.
Nice.
Okay, we got those T-shirts, D?
I'm getting there.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Where are those Rummana Rundown T-shirts, man? The people are, hold on, the phone's ringing. All right, we'll get you that Rummana Rundown T-shirt, all right? That's the phone ringing. Romana will be here at 1:30. And then after Romana, one of my favorite people in all of Illinois politics, the pride and joy of the North Side, State Representative Kelly Cassidy. We got so much to talk about with KC, starting with reefer. You know, Kelly is the sponsor of the legalized marijuana bill. I don't know where that is right now. She'll be giving us the lowdown, the rundown, and all that. Plus, all the other political stuff that's going on in the state of Illinois. Man, they are so twisted, these Republicans. That little flyer, I saw my beloved Bright One today, that they put out comparing Nazis to Dems. I'll talk to Kelly about that, get her thoughts on how Republicans have lost their freaking minds. And then Emily Miller, budget guru Emily Miller. Emily came on the show all the time, pick apart the budget, tell you what's there, everywhere. On the fair tax proposal by Governor Pritzker. Emily Miller now works in the budget department for Governor Pritzker, so we really get down into the weeds. All right? Hey, that's a pun. We'll get down in the weeds. Get it?
Oh, Kelly Cassidy, weed.
And Emily Miller, we're going to get in the weeds. Oh. All right? But that's metaphorical. We're not really going to
Wait, is she bringing weed?
She's not bringing weed. Okay? This is the studio. Smoking in the studio. Put that bong down, all right? All right. Anyway, we have so much political talk ahead of us. I cannot wait. Budgets, reefer, politics.
Oh, this is a Ben Joravsky show today, buddy. He's loving it.
And by the way, Jordan Peele's movie opened last night. Us, you know, I love Jordan Peele. And so
now, before you go watching Us, you got to watch Brick.
I have
from
to.
Ant.
I, by the way, ordered Brick. I just want you to tell you.
All right.
Okay.
Ant, do you hear that? He won the contest yesterday for recommendations.
Yeah.
Our new segment. And Brick from Ant, that was the movie that won. So you ordered it?
I ordered it. It's number one. I moved it up to the queue. Like there's 30. I flopped it over 30, including a whole TV show that's on there. And what was the other movie? Layer Cake?
Yeah.
I hate to break the news, Netflix. You got to up your game. Layer Cake is not currently available. So what they do is they put that on your like reservation list. I've had movies on my reservation list for like 5 years. Okay, I got a feeling that Netflix is not really working hard to add to their list. You know what I'm saying, man? Anyway, Layer Cake's on the reservation list. Brick's number one in the queue. So as soon as I watch Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, you ever seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels?
Yeah. I love that movie.
I love that movie too. For some reason, I decided to watch it again. I don't know, man. Sometimes I just watch movies.
Steve Martin, right?
Man,
I love that movie. Yeah.
Give that guy a blue Mustang. It was Steve
thank
Martin.
you.
For 10 trivia points, who did he star in the movie with? Do not look at your phone. Nope, it's not.
I don't know.
John Lithgow.
That's it.
Anyway, so that's
Frank Oz was involved in the movie. I know that.
yes, I think he directed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what I'll be doing this weekend. I'll be watching that movie, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and Brick is next.
Wait, watch Brick first and then Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
No, but I have to wait. I have to return Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
All right, I'm just looking out for Ant.
That's how that Netflix thing works. You got to mail it, then it comes back. And I'm, by the way, helping out the post office. A lot of good postal workers. You know, I'm helping them out.
That's a great point.
All right, very good. All right. None of that streaming for me. I'm still going through the mail.
Yes, he's old.
All right, we got a great show. A lot of political talk. But before we get to any of it, the doctor has the news.
How's it going, guys? I just need to test something real quick. Hang tight.
Okay,
just wanted to make sure that I can play. All right, here we go, everybody.
Okay.
It's the middle of the final day of the week. I'm looking at you, weekend. Let's talk about the national news happening this afternoon. Our president is rounding out the week by, well, doing what he does best, ramping up the rhetoric.
Oh, God.
If you recall, already this week, Donald Trump has badmouthed the recently passed Senator John McCain, and he branded the spouse of his employee and no one's favorite, Kellyanne Conway, George Conway. Yeah, he branded him a loser and a husband from hell.
Yeah.
Two updates here. First, Trump's Mueller mind games continue. And people, you can tell it's campaign season because Trump is calling to his base here as the Mueller Russian collusion investigation draws to a conclusion. And with the growing possibility of the information going public, Trump on Fox News this morning warned us all that people will not stand for it if the Mueller report portrays him badly.
Oh, yeah.
What does
People
that mean?
I don't know. Well, that means he's doing, just as you said, it's a very strategic move by Donald Trump. He is like biasing the jury, if you will. He's filling the jury with people who will follow him wherever he leads. And so he is tarnishing the report even before it comes out. I think he's been very effective at that. It's clear that the Republican Party has signed on to Donald Trump regardless of what Mueller uncovers. The issue, of course, is whether the Democrats will be lock solid as opposed to Trump, and whether we can move a few more independent-minded people over to, let's say, win Michigan and Wisconsin. Really, Dennis, nothing has changed since 2016 in regards to national politics. What has changed, and this is very upsetting, is that the Republican Party has thrown away any semblance of objectivity when it comes to Donald Trump. And this is partly why I'm going to get into this with Kelly Cassidy. I'd love to pick her brain on. She's very shrewd when it comes to politics. Maybe Romana has some thoughts on this as well. Why does he keep going after John McCain? I'm starting to think it's part of an effort to just demonize everybody in the Republican Party who does not agree with him. Be fearless, absolutely fearless, and just bashing other Republicans. And when Republican elected officials see that Donald Trump's support is staying strong among the rank and file, then they'll fall in line. So I think it's a strongman move. I think that's why he continually goes after John McCain, even though John McCain, of course, passed on several months ago.
All right, in that same Fox interview, Trump weighed in on the somewhat democratically favored Green New Deal. Depends on which Democrats you ask. That Green New Deal that everyone's talking about. Trump said he hopes the 2020 Democratic candidates keep moving forward with the Green New Deal because it would be, quote, very easy to beat.
Yeah, well, he's branding. That's what Donald Trump does. We've talked about this many times, D. He does it with nicknames for other politicians. And now he's just branding the ideas in the Green New Deal as socialist, socialist, socialist. That's what it's going to emanate for the next, get ready for that for whatever, year or so. And then the Democrats will have to figure out, and this will be the big discussion we're going to have for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months, how far to the left will the Democrats go to keep, their base together, to keep their leftist, progressive, whatever you want to call it, base solidly backing the Democrats without having the infighting we saw with Hillary and Bernie. How far to the left can they afford to go before they start alienating the middle? This is a tough political challenge the Democrats are facing.
He went on to say that Democrats are a far left party and that they are radicalized. And also, he doubled down on that one comment he made a while back. Democrats are anti-Jewish. When asked about several presidential hopefuls choosing to skip a conference for the pro-Israel group AIPAC, Trump said about Democrats, quote, "They are totally anti-Israel. Frankly, I think they're anti-Jewish."
Yes, Donald Trump is tripling down on this tactic. The Republicans are picking up on this. They see they are going to attempt to do whatever they can to exploit fear among Jews that somehow or other lefties are turning against Jews, that lefties are anti-Semitic, in order to wedge Jewish voters away from the Democratic Party. They're really crossing a line of all propriety, in my opinion. There was a story today, Sun-Times, Post comparing Nazis to Dems. It's in today's Sun-Times if you want to read it. We're talking about it with Kelly Cassidy. She's quoted in the story. Listen, it's one thing to have Democrats who are critical of the policies of Israel. It's something else to call the Democrats anti-Jewish. Donald Trump is playing with danger here. He's exceeding the line, particularly when he doesn't have the guts to stand up to white supremacists in this country who are exceedingly anti-Semitic. When I see Donald Trump stand up to white supremacists who are anti-Semitic, then I'll believe he really cares about American Jews as opposed to paying politics.
All right, and to wrap up the Trump news here, right before he jumped on Air Force One on his way to Mar-a-Lago, Trump did one of those stupid interviews where the plane's blasted, but he spoke once again on the Mueller investigation right before his trip to Mar-a-Lago.
It's just a continuation of the same witch hunt. They know it, and behind closed doors, they laugh at it. It's just a continuation of the same nonsense. Everybody knows. They ought to go to work, get infrastructure done, and get a lot of other things done instead of wasting everybody's time. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. Everybody knows it. It's all a big hoax. I call it the witch hunt. It's all a big hoax. So we'll see what happens. I know that the Attorney General, highly respected, ultimately will make a decision.
Wow. Where do we start to unpack that one? First of all, work on infrastructure. Donald Trump, you're the president of the United States. You control the Senate. You used to control the House as well. You could put an infrastructure bill out anytime you want. You haven't done it. You're not interested in the basics of running a government. The only significant legislation that you have pushed through, and it's detrimental, I think, to the long-term interests of this country, was a tax bill that gave enormous breaks to the wealthiest people. So that's it. You've done nothing in regards to promoting an agenda that would help anybody, including an infrastructure bill. So for you to pretend as though, oh, we can't get an infrastructure bill because the Democrats are too busy pursuing an investigation into whether you colluded with the Russians to snatch that election from Hillary Clinton. By the way, somebody broke into those computers, everybody. Somebody broke into those computers, those Democratic computers. So anyway, I see through the games you're playing, Donald John Trump. And by the way, man, what, every day is he getting on an airplane? I mean, what? He was on an airplane yesterday, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's on Air Force One, man.
It's just what do they just? Does he actually go anywhere? He stands outside. I understand he stands outside the airplane. You hear the engine, so he can like give out his sentiments for the day, his message of the day, without really taking a question. I can't hear you. Huh? You sound like Rob. Ma.
Oh, Ray Romano.
Ray Romano. Ma. Yeah, it sounds like Ray Romano. I love Ray Romano. Anyway, by the way, Ray Romano has a new show. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I did not.
On Netflix. Anyway, so yeah, he does this little stunt. I don't think he actually goes anywhere. I think he just stands outside.
No, he went to Ohio last time.
Then he comes. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Ohio. So wonder where. Oh, and then he's going to Florida today. All right. Every day he goes somewhere else. He's President Donald Trump.
He's president. He's going.
All right. Okay.
Got places to be. All right.
Yeah, that'd be like me having a press conference outside the Blue Line. That's where I go. That's my quote.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to have some, the train's going by. The guy's playing the guitar over there. There's a guy doing drums over there. Can't hear at you, but I'm just going to say right now, love the Bulls. No time for questions. Got to get on the train.
It sounds like that would be a Jackson, the stop Jackson where you're talking about all the instruments.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, now, of course, we will keep you posted on those stories as today's program rolls along. Oh, shout out to Frank. Ben, you're wrong. Hey, Frank, what's up, dude? Thanks for live streaming and listening here.
What else is new?
Frank says, and I thought you were wrong about this. I'm glad Frank, confirmed it. It says, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels stars Steve Martin and Michael Caine.
You're right.
John Lithgow starred in the Broadway musical version of the movie.
You know what?
Benny's a Broadway man.
You know what? Could you send Frank a blue Mustang?
No, we're not doing that.
No, I'm not doing it. But you're right. And you know what? To quote Jack Nicholson, when you're right, you're right. So thank you, Frank.
All right. Now, Benny J, quick question here. For the fourth and final time this week.
Tuesday, Wednesday. 4.
No show on Monday.
Okay.
You ready to find out what's going on in Chicago and or Illinois?
Young man, I was born ready.
Love that answer. Fantastic answer. Because coming up after this short little break, people, we are going to find out what else is news.
I can't wait, because this is that part of the day where the doctor plucks that little trick out from his little sleeve. We'll see what it is when we return.
Nick Offerman, go.
Hi, this is Nick Offerman. I'm taking my show on the road and subjugating an audience to my humor.
All rise, American humorist Nick Offerman is coming September 15th on stage at the Chicago Theater.
It's an evening of deliberative talking and light dance that will compel you to chuckle while enjoining you to brandish a better side of humanity than the one to which we have grown accustomed.
Reserved seats are on sale noon Friday, March 22nd at the box office or at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Nick Offerman live.
Noon Friday, that's today, guys. The Nick Offerman tickets went on sale today. And great job on that read, by the way, Ben.
Did I tell you I went to radio school?
Oh, my goodness. No, you didn't. What are these things on our head?
Buckets?
Nah, they're called cans. You're embarrassing us. Come on. Stop embarrassing
What's the buckets?
us. There's nothing that has to do with buckets on radio.
I thought there was a bucket thing.
No, there's the pot. You ride the pot. Oh, and that's the little, and then cans. But anyway, welcome back, everybody. It's time to, it's time to find out what's going on locally. All right. It is time for What Else is News. And people, the magic number is 11. That's right. 11 days until our Chicago runoff elections. And give me 1 second here. Okay, there we go. And so we're 11 days away from the runoff elections, 11 days away from the Chicago mayoral runoff election. Absolutely here. And between our Cook County Board president and apparent lover of Chance the Rapper's music, Tony Preckwinkle, and former prosecutor, former Chicago Police Board president. And if you head over to the Dumpster Outsider place now, you may find a collection of Chance the Rapper memorabilia in there. Lori Lightfoot. We took an uber deep dive into Wednesday's debate on ABC 7 Chicago on yesterday's program. And while we got our fair share of talk about change.
Well, I actually think it's change versus the status quo. Well, my whole career has been about change. We have an opportunity to break from that past and bring real, meaningful change.
And change is action and results, not simply words.
It's not just the desire for change.
Change is difficult.
Change.
A lot of change.
Chains, my baby's got me.
No singing.
Oh, that's chains, not change.
Yeah. We're doing pretty well with the listeners. Please, let's keep them around. Stop singing. All right. So while we got our fair share of talk about change, we got another debate to talk about, by the way, guys. 3 debates in 1 week. Afraid so. Yeah.
Good God.
But thanks to Wednesday's debate, we got a better understanding of the candidate's stance on issues like homelessness in the Chicago business community. A somewhat learned forum presented by ABC 7. But today we're going to play just a few of the highlights from WTTW's debate last night. And while also informative, this WTTW debate was a little more heated, all right? But before we get into that, we got a little state news to talk about. For all those in Illinois itching to delete their weed dealer from their phones and finally go buy it legally at a store, well, you and I may have to look like a shady weirdo in an alley for a little longer because a majority of the Illinois House of Representatives has indicated its support of a resolution to slow down legalization of recreational marijuana in the state. 60 of the 118 members of the House have signed on as co-sponsors of a resolution to slow cannabis legalization.
Half of them are high when they're doing it.
Oh, God. To give more time to consider the social impact of and data from other states.
Yeah, what a bunch of frauds. We got Kelly Cassidy coming in here talking about this in about a half an hour or so. Listen, guys, we've been going so slow on legalizing reefer. I mean, I don't know how we could go any slower. It's like a glacier coming down a mountain.
It's funny you say that because if you were to ask Illinois State Rep, chief sponsor of recreational marijuana legalization in Illinois, and let us not forget, like Ben said, 2 o'clock guest of today's Ben Joravsky Show, Kelly Cassidy, she would tell you, slow it down. Dudes, this process has been the slow boat to China. When interviewed about the latest news, Cassidy said, quote, "There's nothing rushed about this at all," and pointed to years of debate with 4 public hearings, 11 town hall meetings, and more than 100 stakeholder meetings.
Yeah, come on, guys. You know, I don't know who you're posturing to. The hypocrisy regarding marijuana in our society, not just the state of Illinois, throughout the country, it's just mind-blowing, no pun intended. I mean,
Lord.
Everybody smoked the stuff or been in a room where it's smoked. Or, you know, has friends and family that smoke it. You act like, oh, we don't know anything about it. It's so new. It's scary. We got to go slow. And then you always throw the kids out there. You know, well, we don't want the children taking it. Then put rules in that they can't take it. Well, then there's a chance that more will take it if you legalize it. Oh, like alcohol, cigarettes, gambling. I mean, like the way we pick and choose our vices in this country, D, I don't quite understand. There's like the favored vices that are okay, politically correct vices, and then there's like the evil vices. And I guess marijuana is still an evil vice, even like, I don't know how many people, thousands, millions, gazillions of people do it every day.
All right, so once again, a big interview here today. 2 o'clock, Kelly Cassidy. She's going to be talking more about this.
Kelly KC.
The legalization of marijuana in Illinois. All right, now to last night's debate. The third one this week. You guys getting sick of this yet?
I love debates.
You waiting for April 3rd? Us too. Last night's debate was once again hosted by WTTW. Shout out to them for the audio we're going to play. Last night's debate started off with something that our host, Ben Joravsky, has experienced quite a few times when interviewing Tony Preckwinkle.
Yeah.
And WTTW got a taste of it last night as well, and that is her constant evading of questions.
Tony.
When pressed by Phil Ponce on why the Preckwinkle campaign recently pulled all of their television ads. Well, let's see if Ponce can get the answer here as to why she did that. Phil Ponce, best of luck, buddy.
It has been reported that you've stopped running TV ads. How come?
You know, this has been a really good day. I'm grateful for the support that I received from Chance this morning. Not only is he a great artist, but he's also a person who has a long history of civic engagement, and he's a community activist. And when he spoke today, he talked about my concern for educational equity and criminal justice reform as several of the reasons that he supported me.
Yes, but the question was...
Strike one.
Why did you pull the ads, right?
All right, well, let's see if he can get it in the second try. Phil Ponce, man, come on, do this. Uh-oh.
Those are the topics that one had to have in television ads. You pulled them. How come?
Well, let me talk too about the support we received earlier in this week from Congressman Danny Davis, from Alderman Walter Burnett, from Alderman Jason Irvin. You know, I think our campaign is building momentum, and we have a broad coalition, and there'll be more endorsements that'll be coming this weekend. We're working hard to secure the votes of every single citizen in Chicago.
All right, strike 2.
Okay. Is there a third one? Does he try a third time?
Third time's a charm. Phil Ponce, let's get the answer. Come on, here we go.
Okay, good opening statement, even though one wasn't expected. But as to the issue of TV ads, what's going on? Typically, candidates, once they start running ads, they don't pull them.
You know, TV ads aren't all there are to campaigns, and we're working hard to meet voters at their doors and in their homes, to talk to them about the important issues in this campaign and to seek their support. Connecting with the voters at their doors and in their homes is critically important in an election that's going to be pretty low turnout.
Some people might say that you've pulled your ads, that there are several reasons why one might pull their ads. Number one, you think you're losing and you don't want to go into debt going into your next phase in public service. Number two, you're out of money. Number three, maybe you're spending it on the internet or so forth.
We're working hard to secure the votes of every single Chicagoan, and we're making personal connections with people which we think will result in victory.
Nice work, Ponce.
Yeah.
Take notes, Ben. He got an answer.
It took him 3 times. Okay, you know. First of all, my humble opinion, I'm going to give some advice to Toni Preckwinkle, which knowing Toni Preckwinkle, she will not take, and I don't blame her. Just answer the question straight up. You know, it's just straight. The last part was probably the most closest to an answer, which is where you say, you know, there's other things you could do besides airing campaign ads. Did you know that, Phil? Huh? And then just deal with that one. I doubt very much that she is going to openly say, yeah, I'm broke, Phil. I got no money and pretty much just running out the string until April 2nd. So thanks for making me feel miserable. Which, by the way, I would have really appreciated that as an answer.
Now, you've been down that road before. How many times has it taken you to get an answer from Toni Preckwinkle sometimes?
Well, when we were at the Hideout with my dear friend Mick Dumke, we had Toni on, I think it was in October. I asked her 3 times, why didn't she run in 2014 against Rahm Emanuel? I still think she's filibustering on that answer as we speak. So, hey, Toni Preckwinkle got far in politics by doing it her way. She's the president of the Cook County Board. She's a nominee. She made the runoff for mayor. She's a very powerful person in the city of Chicago, chair of the Democratic Party, and she's always done it her way. And that means when a nettlesome reporter asks her a question that she doesn't want to answer, guess what? She doesn't answer it. So that's Toni Preckwinkle.
All right, we got 2 more clips to play here. When talking endorsements, Preckwinkle mentioned how, unlike the Lightfoot campaign, Preckwinkle has received endorsements from Trump supporters.
You know, I haven't been endorsed by anybody who's been a supporter of Donald Trump, as my opponent has, Alderman Sposato and Alderman Napolitano. You know, I'm proud of the support that I've received.
The issue of your supporters, some of your supporters being backers of the president?
Well, as President Preckwinkle knows, the truth is both of those individuals are members of the firefighters union that did endorse me. Neither of them had individually endorsed me in their official capacity. But look, I think the thing that's most important is the endorsement of the voters. What we have seen, particularly since February 26, is a groundswell of support for my campaign and my candidacy, because I stand in stark contrast to the president as somebody who is a Democrat, who's independent, focused on reform, and really bringing fundamental change to our city.
That's what they call a pivot, everybody. That is a classic debate pivot. The question was put right to her by Phil Ponce. Does this say something bad about you because you have these 2 prominent Chicago politicians who voted for Trump for you? And she goes, well, they didn't really support me. It was the firefighters, their union, that did it. By the way, did I tell you that what really counts are the people of the state of Illinois, the people of the city of Chicago, when they vote? Great pivot by Lori Lightfoot. She's learning the game. Well, she's a lawyer, so she's probably been arguing with people for, her whole entire professional life. And then Rummana Hussain, my next guest, knows this, that if you become a lawyer, that's not the start of your arguing. You probably became a lawyer because you were so good at arguing, and you spent your whole life arguing, like with your brother, your mother, your sister, your aunt, etc., etc. So,
all right, it's the final clip we're going to play here, and it's the clip the media is running with today. The time when Lori Lightfoot mentioned that she's donated to Toni Preckwinkle before.
Oh, I love this.
Preckwinkle, I'm really surprised that you keep going down this path. You've taken $19,000 from my partners, $1,000 from me. If we're so offensive and the work that we've done offends your sensibilities.
Excuse me, you've donated to her?
Absolutely. She called me up and asked me for a donation. I wrote her a $1,000 check.
What was that?
Pardon me?
What was that?
That was last year. And if you're so offended by that, give the money back. Give it back. I'll give you the address.
I tell you
71 South Avenue.
I tell you
60604.
Oh, come on. Give Lori credit. the fact of the matter is, and this gets back to how Tony's attacking her for getting the nomination. In politics, everybody knows, Rummana Hussain, my next guest, knows it. It's all about addition. When you're trying to win, you get as much support as you can. You pick it. Sometimes you cross a line. Maybe there's some support that you don't want. Like, you wouldn't want David Duke's support, who's the head of the KKK, although Donald Trump hasn't turned it down yet. We'll be talking about that with Romana in the next segment. But so there's obviously some lines that you cannot allow to be crossed, but aldermen in the city of Chicago, I'm sure that Tony Preckwinkle would have taken their endorsement. Tony Preckwinkle took campaign contributions from Lori Lightfoot. She was not the epitome of corporate Republican devilry, which is what they're trying to depict her as back then. That's the game of politics. You try to do it through addition. And so there is a certain amount of hypocrisy going on all sides where they try to blemish somebody by virtue of the support that they have.
So there you are. You're now in the know of what's going on in Illinois and Chicago.
It has been reported that you've stopped running TV ads. How come?
You know, this has been a really good day.
And now you'll have an answer the next time someone asks you, hey, what else is news?
All right, let me tell you something.
Okay.
Something that our next guest, our guest in the 2 o'clock hour, I should say, Kelly Cassidy believes. Something that Kellyanne Conway also believes.
Oh, really?
And something that Tim Conway from the Carol Burnett Show.
You're kidding me.
Do you know Tim Conway?
Yeah.
I love Tim Conway. But not as much as I love Carol Burnett. I love Carol Burnett. They all agree you did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. We got Rummana Hussain with the Rummana Rundown right on deck. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for the Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. If you would like to advertise with the Ben Joravsky Show, and who wouldn't, contact Tracy Baim at publisher@chicagoreadercorp.com. We have several advertising options for your business or organization, and quite frankly, we would love nothing more than to tell our listeners all about it. Once again, that's Tracy Baim at publisher@chicagoreadercorp, that's C-O-R-P as in Paul.com, to advertise with the Ben Joravsky Show, the Chicago Reader, and the Chicago Sun-Times. We look forward to plugging you. Okay, well, that came out kind of weird. More of the Ben Joravsky Show live and downloaded in moments. Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show.
This segment of the show has quickly become one of our most popular. Rummana Hussain, editor from the Chicago Sun-Times. We call it the Rummana Rundown. We have T-shirts that say Rummana Rundown.
I forgot to wear mine today.
I don't even have one.
We're going to get those T-shirts, Rummana, any day now, all right? So the Rummana Rundown, what are some of the big stories of the week we should be talking about, some of the big issues? But at the top of the list, let's give a little shout out to our brothers and sisters at the Chicago Sun-Times. They got a great profile series coming up. Talk about that a little bit. Romana.
Yeah, it was in today's paper, and they're both online. I believe it's in today's paper, or maybe it's Sunday. It's Sunday.
Sunday's
yeah,
paper.
I forgot.
Home
Sometimes
subscribers get the Friday newspaper.
I know, but our newspaper guy has been really slow. He right before we leave, he delivers them like at 8:30. So
really?
Yeah,
Man,
so
it's
really weird. So we've been getting our paper really, really late. I'm like, aren't we supposed to be eating our breakfast while we read the paper? But so our delivery guy's been. That's actually kind of something we've been talking about at home. We're like, do we call? I don't want to complain. It's a hard job, but it's like our paper's getting later and later every day, so we usually get it pretty late. So I always forget that we do put pretty important stories. Post them on Friday. So I did read both of the profiles, and they're just really interesting because, they're talking about like a lot of personal things with Lori Lightfoot and Tony Preckwinkle. And I thought there was a lot of interesting tidbits. For me, like I liked all the parts that were more personal rather than political. Tony Preckwinkle apparently makes really good macaroni and cheese.
Wow, that's a reason to vote for I love macaroni and cheese. Do you like macaroni and cheese?
I love macaroni and cheese.
Oh God, I love when it's really
cheesier,
chewy.
the better.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. And they both grew up in these Midwestern towns that were predominantly white, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they kind of were the only one of the few black people in the school. So I thought it was very interesting, and they're obviously very talented from the get-go. They were Lori Lightfoot, you have to look at this one picture of her. She was on the school council. I think she was the president. But she basically has this picture where in the yearbook where they all dressed up like cowboys, and you just got to look at the picture. It's so like it's 1980, but the 70s are still lingering there. And then she also ran in a pageant, which I thought was very interesting. It was a mostly white country club, and everybody said she should have been the winner, but she didn't. They said because she was black, that was one of the reasons. So I thought the story. I like the human. They obviously talk about how they got interested in politics, but the humane parts were really interesting. I had, Lori Lightfoot had mentioned her brother who went to prison, and she talked about that, and she just said how she came home one Christmas and there was no Christmas decorations, and it turned out her brother, who was also a pimp, and she, at some point went into a bank and robbed it and shot someone. And so she talked about how her family was deciding to put up the mortgage up for his bail, and he told his family that if I do make bail, I'm going to run. And she kind of convinced her parents, don't give up your house. And so I thought that was an interesting part. And at one point in the profile with Lori Lightfoot, she actually starts crying when she's talking about her father. I thought this was kind of interesting. I think the story describes Lori Lightfoot as stoic, and there's two people who described Tony Preckwinkle as a school marm. So so like they just said she's very serious, but they said they also have this side, and they are very serious from what we know. But I do like the fact that our reporters had taken the time and to speak with them and who they were. I knew Tony Preckwinkle had a son, but I had no idea she had a daughter, and she's staying with her daughter right now while her Hyde Park condo is being rehabbed. So I like that, and you got to look at the online story. They have like a lot of pictures, and it's kind of cool to look at these pictures of these women when they were really young, and obviously they were kind of gonna, they kind of had their foot in the right path, at a really, really young age.
Well, for a special bonus feature that after today's show, we're going to record an interview with Lauren Fitzpatrick and Mark Brown, who are two of the authors, and we'll be getting into more of the details, talking about some of the things that they discovered about these two candidates. Just hearing what you're saying, Romana, I haven't had an opportunity yet to read it because I read the Sun-Times.
Yeah.
It comes home delivered, but I'll go on the internet. I'm capable of doing that.
Tony Preckwinkle actually describes herself as being, that's part towards the end of the story. She doesn't use the internet. She doesn't have email. I think she uses the internet, but not really. She calls herself a Luddite. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Luddite, yeah.
And so she said that she's very proud, and she said she's able to survive without having an email address. So that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, no, and it seems as like you said, they're humanizing them. There's been such an effort by each camp to dehumanize the other one and to characterize them. Particularly the Preckwinkle people have turned Lori Lightfoot into this caricature of a heartless corporate lawyer Republican who loves police. And it seems like I get a call every other hour from someone on that that score singing that song, and it seems like there's a different side to her. I don't even know if that other side exists, but
well, I think this is just my, I'm not an expert like you are, but
Romana's going on a limb here.
Lori Lightfoot has a lot of support from white liberals, and white liberals tend to hate people who are rich. I kind of feel like even the white liberals who are rich, like being rich is such a horrible thing. And I was actually talking to Mick the other day, my husband, about how like in many minority communities, that's, to see yourself like, actually be successful is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So when people just say corporate, lawyer, I think that's, makes white liberals really angry. They just hear that and they're like, oh, she's a rich corporate lawyer. And then everybody just gets mad. And I know we talked about this. It might not necessarily be a bad thing for a lot of people.
Let me just make a clarification on your distinction. I'm not sure you're talking about white liberals. This is one of my favorite topics.
Okay? Oh, I can talk about white liberals all day.
I know, but white liberals, a lot of white liberals are rich.
Oh, I know.
They live along the lakefront, so they wouldn't have any problem. I think that when even a dog whistle when the Preckwinkle people talk about how she's a corporate lawyer.
Yeah,
I think they're trying to convince somebody who would never in a million years, even if they are of the Caucasian persuasion.
But don't you think? I mean,
identify themselves as a liberal. Anyway.
I feel like every time I look on the internet, there's a white liberal talking about her being, pro police, and that kind of goes along with the whole corporate thing. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously a lot of white liberals have money.
No, I'm just saying that those people who are saying those things, you're absolutely correct, would not identify themselves as liberal.
Yeah,
do you feel what I'm saying?
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you're really saying like progressives or...
yeah, I guess, but they wouldn't call themselves liberal.
No, nobody calls them. I'm the only one who calls myself a liberal anymore because I'm like 90.
I guess I should say white progressives. They definitely have a certain viewpoint of things, and you just hear if you say anything corporate, it just makes the smoke come out of their ears. Well, I think so. I think it's an interesting strategy for sure from Tony Preckwinkle's office, and I think that's what they want to, because Lori Lightfoot identifies as, her whole platform is I'm a progressive. And so I think Tony Preckwinkle is just taking a hammer to that and just keep chipping away every time they come on TV for a debate. I think that's the strategy they're going to try to use in these last few days.
Yeah, and but Lori pounces on this point every time it's raised, and she's had to deal with this so many times. She dealt with it with Mick and myself at the Hideout.
Yeah.
Phil Ponce last night when she was in the studio last week. She loves it when someone says, so Lori, they call you a corporate lawyer. And then she just has this, and frankly, I'm insulted by that.
And she talks about, hey, I'm successful. Is that a bad thing? And I think then, Tony Preckwinkle's camp, they go, well, you backed all these people like tobacco companies and all these people who a lot of people see as evil, or these corporations as people see as evil. But, so I just think it's a very interesting back and forth that we've seen the last few days, for sure.
All right. Do you have a tape to play? I would love to get Romana's reaction to, do you have the Chance thing?
Absolutely, yeah. When Ponce was trying to get the answer to why she pulled her ads, we got some information that on Chance the Rapper's endorsement of Tony Preckwinkle. Hey, turns out she's a big fan.
It has been reported that you've stopped running TV ads. How come?
This has been a really good day. I'm grateful for the support that I received from Chance this morning. Not only is he a great artist, but he's also a person who has a long history of civic engagement, and he's a community activist. And when he spoke today, he talked about my concern for educational equity and criminal justice reform as several of the reasons that he supported me.
All right, there's Tony singing out her praise of Chance. Romana's saying the tough questions coming to you. Do you think Tony Preckwinkle can identify one song by Chance the Rapper?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even think I can. I probably can hear a song and I'll be like, oh, okay. I've actually saw him. I went to Lollapalooza one year with my niece. I think my nephew went to my oldest niece and my oldest nephew. We went one year,
What
and I think we saw a
great
Chance the
aunt you
Rapper.
are. You took your niece to Lollapalooza?
I took her, actually, the first time I took her was for her 16th birthday, and my older sister's like, I don't want her going alone. So she went with us, and we did that for a couple of years. And then a couple of years ago, my niece was like, I'm too old for this. And she was like barely 20 at the time.
Whoa,
So,
you outgrow Lollapalooza?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
but yeah, she told me like when she was in college, like she'd bump into everyone from her school, and she goes, "Oh God, my whole school is here. It's like it's gotten too like out of control where I know everybody." And it was kind of interesting because at a certain point, I'd be walking through Lollapalooza, and every 5 minutes, somebody would say hi to her. Like she had all these friends going, and then I felt really old because the only people, it's kind of all ages, but the only people I was bumping into were reporters who were covering this, and so that's how they saw me. And I was like trying to blend in, I guess, but.
I have never been to Lollapalooza, but you are such a good sport. That is every niche should have an aunt like Aunt Romana. I'm going to tell you right now, the equivalent in my life, I'm going to go back to the dinosaur era. My father, many, many years ago when we lived in Rhode Island, took me and my older sister to see Paul Revere and the Raiders. Have you ever heard of Paul Revere and the Raiders?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have.
Dennis?
I don't.
Oh, Lord.
What songs do they sing? That's the one thing I probably don't know.
Dennis, give us a Paul Revere.
Paul Revere and the Raiders? Oh, they sing We're Raiding. I don't know.
Okay.
Never heard of the group in my life.
Their big hit was a song called Kicks. Kicks just...
Okay. I don't know that song,
anyway,
but I've heard of them.
Yeah, Paul,
Well,
and then,
maybe a better interpretation of the song you may know. I don't know.
anyway, my father complained about that concert for like 20 years. I remember I had to take you to see Paul Revere. That music was terrible.
Well, the same niece I took to go see Hillary Duff. Do you know who Hillary Duff is?
Yeah, Hillary Duff. She was like on
you
TV.
have daughters, yeah, but I remember I took her, and I think Blagojevich went to that concert with his daughters.
Yeah,
so I still remember that, and it was like her and her sister, because Haley Duff is also a singer-actress, but she wasn't as popular. But like the only song I knew was when they did a rendition of Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's.
Ooh,
but
I love that. Our lips are sealed. But Hillary Duff did that? I did not know that.
Well, I don't know. I think it might have been her older sister, but Hillary Duff did. I think she did Blondie's rendition of The Tide Is High, because I remember I used to take my niece to Hillary Duff movies too.
Well, I got to tell you, I got a kick out of when Tony went on that riff, because at the previous debate, one of my favorite moments came when Carol Maureen asked the two candidates, what song is it? What song is in the world that just makes you want to get up and dance? And Tony's answer was A Change Is Gonna Come, which is one of the greatest songs ever written.
But did you say it's not danceable?
It's totally, completely not danceable. So now all of a sudden she went from dancing to Sam Cooke's sort of like an elegy to loving Chance the Rapper or anything. I mean, hey, man, it's like you got to do what you got to do to get elected mayor of the city of Chicago. All right, let's move on from the mayor's race and let's pick up the conversation from last week. We talked last week about the killings in New Zealand. 50 people, I think, were killed in 2 mosques in New Zealand by a deranged gunman who is a white supremacist. And the part of the story that hammers home here in our country is the inability, the refusal of the President of the United States, the most prominent politician, our leader, Romana, our leader, to take a strong and unequivocal denunciation, make a strong, unequivocal denunciation of just that shooter, white supremacists, and people who would kill Muslims.
Yeah, and I think one of the criticisms of his tweets and his comments is that he never really mentions that Muslims were killed. And, he'll just say, oh, the slaughter is terrible. But, a lot of American Muslims feel like he's not really saying Islamophobia is bad or, the killing of these Muslims are bad. And I know a lot of people have compared to the language that he's spoken of when other religious groups have been killed. I think there was Coptic Christians that were killed in Egypt in 2017, and he called it the merciless slaughter of Christians, the bloodletting of Christians must end. And I think when Sarah Sanders, she talked about the slaughter, same people in his administration, they never really mentioned that these were Muslim victims. And I think someone had asked him, I think when he had a press conference or a couple of days ago when he was some sort of address, and he just said basically, we can't blame this on, he's talking about white supremacists, on a small group with very, very serious problems. And so, you know, a lot of people feel like he's kind of, you know, not really touching on the fact that the alleged shooter had a manifesto and he mentioned Trump.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people around the world think that he is enabling white supremacy. I think a lot of people have been writing and talking about the comparisons between Donald Trump's reactions and the reactions of the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, I believe her name is. She basically, you know, everybody's basically saying that she's behaving the way Donald Trump should be behaving when something like this happens against Muslims. She said the government is going to pay for the funerals. She was at the funerals. You know, she said Assalamu alaikum at one of the cabinet meetings. I guess they call it cabinet meetings, and they took control of the gun situation pretty quick too. I think a lot of people pointing that out, the ban of certain weapons. And I think a couple days ago they asked her, what did you talk to with Donald Trump when Donald Trump called to offer his condolences? And she said, he asked what offer of support the United States could provide. My message was sympathy and love for all Muslim communities. And a lot of people feel like, you know, he really hasn't done that. He doesn't really say that, you know, and when there is a, you know, Muslim perpetrator, he's talking about, well, this is why we have to ban these people. You know, he's had Twitter rants where he goes off, and he has, you know, even before the, I think was it before the elections where he said, you know, quote unquote, Islam hates us, which is grammatically incorrect in many ways. So a lot of people feel like he's not really addressing the problem of white supremacy or the problem of Islamophobia and how, you know, rhetoric can affect, the way people can act.
Absolutely. And again, the shooter had praised Donald Trump.
Yes, in his manifesto.
He didn't deal with that. He didn't confront the consequences of the kinds of campaigns he's run. He didn't confront the consequences of his own rhetoric at all. And then he did the pivot. He did a pivot so quickly, Romana, with his tweets. Last weekend, we talked about this earlier in the show, or earlier this week, Donald Trump went on a tweet rampage. I think 50 or so tweets. I can't remember the exact number. And at some point, he pivoted from like this vague sympathy for the people who were gunned down, without naming, of course, their religion, to suddenly defending Judge Jeannie Perot, the talk, the talk show host on Fox, who was lost. I think she's suspended for her show for comments she made about Congresswoman Omar, and he began to defend her. So it's almost like the murders are done. Now I'm going right back to where I've always been.
Yeah, and it's like one of the things a lot of people have pointed out is like the humanity of the actual victims is not spoken about that much. You know, we're hearing about Trump and everybody else, but it's like, you know, he needs to realize the youngest victim in this was a 3-year-old boy. His name is Moad Ibrahim. He was born of Somalian. You know, he's of Somalian descent. There's like so many people who are actually refugees from different countries, you know, they were victims too. And, you know, a lot of, you know, we talk about the Muslim ban. So, yeah, I mean, the tweets definitely, it's just interesting. It's like he's able to like say, you know, I have sympathy, but he doesn't say who he has sympathy for. And then he kind of just jumps onto this, like, you know, the rhetoric that is actually kind of fueling this kind of behavior, or, you know, a lot of people would say this kind of behavior.
Romana, the last time you were on the show last Friday, you were talking about growing up in Lincolnwood, going to Niles West High School, and how at Niles West, at least when you were there, were a lot of Jewish kids there. It seems to me, and disagree with me if you want, that Donald Trump is intentionally trying to drive a wedge between Jews and the Democratic Party, Jews and Muslims. It seems that's like he's determined to do that.
For sure. He just wants to see, you know, traditionally there are a lot of Jewish people in the Democratic Party, and, you know, now we're seeing Muslim Americans, you know, joining Congress, and there's definitely going to be a different viewpoint on certain issues that were never really discussed before, including Israel. So, and everybody knows that's a very passionate topic. A lot of people can't talk about, and, you know, interestingly enough, I think Judaism and Islam are very similar. I can go into a synagogue and I identify with a lot more things than I do if I went into a church, because I understand it. The religions are very similar. But yeah, there's like, you know, obviously disagreement on many issues, including the Middle East. I think that's one major disagreement. But, you know, there's so many groups of people who are Jewish and Muslim and they're friends, And so, yeah, I think, by saying things like Democrats hate Jewish people, I think that definitely it's a very sensitive topic. And I think that definitely is kind of seeping into the rhetoric these days, or a lot of the conversations these days.
We'll be talking a lot about this going forth, not just with you, but just with, as the presidential campaign heats up. This is clearly a tactic that the Democrats are going to have to confront somehow or other and deal with. And I, for all the struggles they had with the resolution, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where they ended up condemning hate against all groups. I appreciate that in the aftermath of what went down in New Zealand. You know what I mean? It's just like we're against hate of any kind. I appreciate that effort. Do you just right now, can you think of anything that the Democrats might do or pursue to try to find a way to counter Donald Trump's blatant attempts to manipulate hatred and fear?
I think people need to speak out. And maybe we'll see more people speaking out, or, maybe we'll see a lot of these Democrats coming together, because that's one of the things, people do criticize Democrats about, is being so fractured. And, one of the things that's interesting is with Republicans, like even when Donald Trump says something that a lot of the other Republican candidates or a lot of people in the Republican Party don't agree with, they're kind of quiet usually. And that's what a lot of people say is enabling Donald Trump. But I think you might hear, as the year goes on, if this continues, I think you will hear more people speaking out, I think.
All right.
That's what I think. I could be totally wrong.
That's Rummana Hussain. We're doing the Rummana Rundown, going through the big stories of the week. We're going to take a break and be right back.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m., live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. Hey, everybody. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, March 22nd is just moments away. But before we get into said hour number 2, we need to remind you that the Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by unions. A couple of them, in fact, like the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith workers, Ben, Local 126 and District 8, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Thank you to those unions for jumping on board with us here. And, of course, today's show brought to you by our friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. All right, hour number 2 of the Benny J Show starts now. It is Friday, March 22nd, and live from the Chicago Reader Sun-Times studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we still got Rummana Hussain in studio. We welcome our good friend and budget guru, Emily Mueller, and Illinois State Rep, break out the bong, just kidding, Kelly Cassidy. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Benny J. Ben Joravsky.
No bong jokes for Kelly, all right?
Did she say that?
No, I just said that.
Hey, I'll come on, but hey, no bong jokes,
all right,
dude.
No bong jokes. Right. Kelly Cassidy, State Representative Kelly Cassidy, one of the leading sponsors of the bill that would legalize marijuana in the state of Illinois, something that Mick Dumke and I have been writing about for years and years and years. We talk, Romana's husband, Mick Dumke, my dear friend Mick Dumke, and partner in crime at the Hideout. We've been talking about legalizing marijuana for all these years. I never asked you, Romana, what's your opinion?
Am I supposed to? I'm not supposed to talk about my opinion. But
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
she's different. She's an editor.
Yeah.
She has no opinions.
I do. I have a lot of opinions. I try to keep my politics usually out. Obviously, I'm not going to say I like Donald Trump as a Muslim. So there's certain things I can talk about and certain things I can't. But it's definitely, I think it's a topic that a lot of people, maybe a couple years ago, people would be saying don't legalize marijuana. And now people are saying, obviously there's so many benefits that outweigh the negatives. And so it's definitely an interesting topic. My mom didn't know that Mick writes about marijuana. I told her and she was just like, what does he think? And I go, well, he's written stories that are pro-legalization. Mom's like, what? So she's like, oh, yeah. So I was like, well, I was explaining to her why people think legalization is good. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I agree with that. Yeah, so,
it's a big world. Everybody has her.
So it's funny. She didn't know. I had to tell her.
Yeah, she didn't know that her son-in-law, big proponent of legalizing marijuana. All right, Dee, before we get back to Romana, you got an update for us?
Absolutely, I do. It is round 3 of our Nick Offerman ticket giveaway today. He's going to be performing Sunday, September 15th at the Chicago Theater. All this week, we've been giving everybody the chance to get a pair of tickets. I believe round 1, we had people name 9 famous Nicks, nonfiction, anybody who's a famous person with the first name Nick. Aaron won that contest. She had people like Nick Nolte, Nick Young, Nick Cannon was one of them.
Nick Cannon was one, yep.
And quite a few.
Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran.
Oh, no one said Nick Rhodes.
Wow, can we get her some tickets?
Oh, I'll look into it.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Do you like Nick Offerman? Do you know who Nick Offerman is?
I know who he is. Yeah, isn't he married to Megan Mullally?
Very good. Get her more tickets for that.
I'm pretty on top of pop culture. That's why I said we can talk about pop culture and I'll go on and on. So I know who he is. I don't know him that well, but I know definitely who he is. He's in a lot of movies, kind of plays like a side character sometimes.
Have you ever seen We're the Millers?
No.
It's a very funny movie, and he and his wife are in it. They're very good together.
Yeah, I think they've written books before too. I was read interviews with them, and they were side by side.
Thank God our third round wasn't the question, who is Nick Offerman married to? She just gave the answer there. No, it is not. That isn't. It isn't. I thought about it. I thought about it, making a trivia question. But no. Our third game here, or giveaway that we're going to do for Nick Offerman tickets, we're going to give it to the live streamers first, all right? We are very thankful for those who are listening on the live stream right now. So we're going to give the live streamers the opportunity first. Then after a while, if I don't see anybody posting anything, I will then put it on Facebook for everyone who are just, sees it online. All right, very similar to our name 5 or 9 famous Nicks thing we did. We're going to do right now on the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. Head over to the Facebook page, and the first person to post 5 movies starring or featuring Nick Offerman will get a pair of tickets to see him Sunday, September 15th at the Chicago Theater. So it's more of a speed thing, So if you're the first to post on our page, wherever, 5 movies starring or featuring Nick Offerman, you will go see Nick Offerman at the Chicago Theater September 15th. You hear that, live streamers? I'm giving you guys the opportunity first. So head over to the Facebook page at Benny J Show. By the way, if you haven't liked the page, go like it and then post 5 movies.
Please do, yeah.
Come on. So head over there. Post 5 movies. The first person to do so will win the tickets. Good luck. We'll be reading your movies on the air.
All right. I think I just gave away one of the movies. Let's just rewind it.
5 movies except that Miller's movie.
No, you could say.
No. We're the Millers is out.
Oh, you're so hard on our listeners.
It's not that hard. They can just Google IBM.
Yeah. It's a speed thing, though. You got to be the first to post it.
Oh, yeah. No phones, all right? You could use your phones, everybody. You could definitely use your phones. Speaking of movies, Us has opened, Romana, and Us, of course, is I was waiting for over a year, the follow-up to Get Out, Jordan Peele's which I thought was the best movie of the year. In fact, I used to. I think I
21st Century.
yeah, I've advocated the greatest movie of the 21st century is Get Out. I stand by that still. You saw Get Out,
Yeah.
didn't you? And
I loved it. It was good. I don't know if it was the best movie of the 21st century, but I thought it was really creative, and I liked the whole concept of it. And so I did like it.
What would you put ahead of it as the greatest movie of the 21st century?
I don't know. I have a lot of favorite movies, so I have to like sit down and pick different genres probably. But I don't know if it was definitely great in terms of the creativity, and there's very little creativity once in a while, like in the theater. And I think that was one of the movies I think that everybody I know saw, because sometimes people have differences of opinions on genres, and this was definitely kind of it's kind of framed as a horror movie, but it has social commentary, which is similar to the new movie. Although I've read a lot of articles about the movie so far, and it's less about race, but I think it might touch upon it. And so people say you have to watch it, this new one, like at least 2 or 3 times to like see or you get different takes from it. So I'm excited about this movie too.
Yeah, it's just your basic scary movie as far as I can understand. I mean, it doesn't. I've not read any like deep dive interviews or discourses about it.
There's more to it than just being a horror movie, because I've read interviews about it, and I don't think I'm giving anything away, but it's we're talking about politics and the Trump era, and so this kind of touches upon being an American, and are you to blame for what is happening or what has happened to this country? So people say it's actually a representation of America and Americans, and people thinking that they're of no fault. But the movie, they have these scary doppelgangers of this family, this black African-American family. And Jordan Peele said one of the, and he pays, I think the movie kind of starts off in 1986, and then it might flash forward to the future. But this like family of 4, they basically have these like people that look like them, mirror images of them. They're just scary. So there's there's actually commentary on this one too. So there's layers and layers.
All right, I didn't know that.
So it's not a typical horror movie. Otherwise, Mick would not watch it.
Oh yeah,
or maybe he would. Maybe he would. He told me he doesn't like horror movies.
No, he went to this whole thing. I had many arguments with him about Get Out because he has a grudge against, a bit of a prejudice against it because, quote unquote, it's a horror movie, and that keeps him from like totally embracing it as far as with a great movie that I think it is.
Did you see Hereditary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So that was the last horror movie I saw, and I saw that, and he's like, I'm not watching this. I don't like horror movies. And he sat next to me reading a book on politics while I was watching Hereditary. I think it was a book, or he's doing research on something.
On legalizing marijuana.
And I was the movie freaked me out. I mean, I don't like that many horror movies actually either, because it takes a lot to really get me scared. I saw it, and I remember I took Mick to see it, and I heard it's really scary, and then we were laughing throughout the whole thing because we didn't think it was scary.
No, it wasn't. Well, except for the opening bits where, like, give it away, everybody knows it, where the kid is like following the boat down as it goes into the sewer, and the clowns in the sewer. I mean, I was kind of scared.
Yeah, but I was just like, it takes a lot to get me really scared. Like movies that are like psychological or about like devil worshiping, it really scares me. So that's why Hereditary really scared me. And the scariest movie I think of all time is something like The Exorcist or
Hereditary. Okay, I'm going to. Hereditary basically gets into the issue of how demons get passed on from one generation to the other. So it's like a metaphor for all the twisted nature of families that they kind of keep secret, that they want people to know, and a madness gets passed on, is what I want to say, from one generation to another.
For sure.
And so
that had layers in it too, I thought. And I thought I kind of touched a little, like it had Rosemary's Baby, a little bit of that into the film too. So that was the last scary movie I saw. And Mick was mentioning Us, and I told him, I'm like, I already know about this movie. He's like, I always tell him that I know about this stuff before you do. He's like, oh, I heard Jordan Peele's new movie came out. I'm like, yeah, I saw the trailer like a month ago. So it's been talked about, and I think he is going to see that one. And I'm excited about seeing that one because I do like, I think I like horror movies, but when they have something to say about them. So it's definitely very interesting. Yeah, so it's not just a horror movie where you just go and be scared. There was one of my colleagues, Alex Arriaga, actually today, right when I came in, she was telling us she saw it, and she said it was really scary. and she's going to watch it again because she needs to. And she said, you know, it's commentary on American politics, and to the point we've got to. And, you know, I've read that it's also about immigration, gentrification. So it should be interesting. And Jordan Peele also mentioned that, you know, in the old days, like especially the 70s and 80s, and this is, you know, probably true of all movies, like, you know, the protagonists are always white. You know, there's always like the white family. So he said when he talked about race, he goes, that's the one difference with this horror movie. It's like, you know, it's an all black family.
Yeah, I am definitely going to see that. I'm going to see that probably tomorrow night. Before
we can discuss that.
And we can discuss it next. You're going to see it. That's our.
I don't know if I'm going to see it.
assignment.
I don't know if I'm going to see it this week.
I'm definitely going to see it this week.
I saw the Michael Jackson documentary. We never talked about that, but just for the show to practice. But but we can talk about that later.
I have not seen that one yet, and I'm really grappling with that whole thing because I was a huge Michael Jackson fan.
Is Kelly Cassidy here?
Yes. Kelly
okay. Well, you guys
Cassidy
talk about that. I'll go grab her, and then we'll take a break and do that. How about that?
All right. Very good. I have been grappling with that for a long time. My love for Michael Jackson and my inability to deal with the revelations that are coming out about him. So I'm just sort of pretending like
it didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
It's very compelling, I think, if you watch it. I know a lot of people. There's two colleagues of mine at work who are like huge Michael Jackson fans, and one said that she can't watch it. The other one said that she's going to prepare herself before she watched it. And I was someone who was a Michael Jackson fan for about 2 weeks because I got into new wave really quickly. But I was in junior high when Thriller came out, and I pretended I wasn't a fan, you know, for a little while. But I mean, I love that album, and just, you know, having the mic. There was one kid in my class who had 2 Beat It jackets. He had a red one, like in the video, and he had a black version too. And I was like, oh my God. It was like this just craze. I mean, I saw the making of Thriller, and I saw Thriller in junior high. Our teacher showed it to us. And it was just this phenomenon. And I don't think it's ever been captured like that before. But just watching it kind of brought back a lot of memories of being a kid. And just, you know, so you had these two men who are talking about they allege that Michael Jackson had molested them. And I remember one of the kids, he was in a Pepsi commercial that came out in 1988. And the other kid I don't remember, but he was Australian. Their whole family actually moved from Australia to the United States because of his connection to Michael Jackson. He won this dance contest. And by that point, I was like older, like in the late 80s. I was an older teen. And I thought Michael Jackson hanging out with kids at that point was very unusual. And some people said, you know, because he definitely had no childhood, and his childhood was very fractured. Some people said, well, I think that he's just trying to recapture his childhood. But I think if you watch it, it's just very compelling. I think, you know, different people have different takeaways from it. But
did you believe the two witnesses? So if you
they are very believable if you watch them. And I think they only met each other once at a slumber party Michael Jackson had with all these little kids. It's just interesting, and just like listening to their mothers talk, because their mothers allowed them to sleep in a room with Michael Jackson. So it's very heavy. It's very heavy. And like I said, I don't even think I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, but I was kind of feeling like this knot in my stomach because I just remember
what's that all about? The mother letting the kids sleep with Michael Jackson?
Well, you know, they had this, you know, through Michael Jackson, they were able to meet all these celebrities. They stayed at Neverland. One family, because these young men, they're like, one's like in his late 30s, one's in his early 40s. Now, they both had testified at his trial. His trials involving the other minors. And after one of them had testified in one of the cases, Michael Jackson pretty much gave them a loan for their house because the family wanted to buy a house. And then, you know, after he was acquitted, he said, you know, I'll forgive the loan, according to the family. So, you know, it's a very interesting thing. And one of the men, you know, he went to therapy, and you know, his wife doesn't want anything to do with the mother. He's like, it's your fault that you let him kind of go to Michael Jackson. One mom was talking about how, like, you know, I kind of traded this lifestyle for my child's, you know, life itself, because she got to meet all these celebrities. So I think it's very interesting. I think people should watch it. It's just
It's just the part that strikes me is the backlash. There's always this backlash of people like defending, just instinctive defense. We talked with R. Kelly. We talked about this with R. Kelly. Seeing the same thing with Michael Jackson. Just a backlash to defend. It's like this inability on the part of fans to criticize. It's almost like an analogy for politics as well. I mean, when you get in a political campaign, I'm seeing that right now with Preckwinkle, Lightfoot. The Preckwinkle supporters, they're just laser-like in their support of Tony and demonizing Lori Lightfoot, and to a certain degree, it's happening in reverse as well. So you see that, you know what I'm saying? You just cannot deviate because it's going to prove something wrong about yourself if you change your opinion or change your thoughts about somebody.
Yeah. So I know there was like a friend of mine was sending me texts because my younger sister saw it first, and a mutual friend of ours was like, I don't believe it. And he sent us a list of tweets, because these, like I said, these two men did testify in favor of Michael Jackson. I think one guy testified at one trial, the other guy testified at both trials. And so, they talk a little bit about that in there and why they decided to. And they said one of the things that triggered them was when they had their own children. So, that's when they realized they need to speak out. So it's very interesting. Obviously Michael Jackson is dead. He can't speak for himself, but I think it's a very compelling. I know a lot of people who are defending Michael Jackson. I know we speak about Woody Allen all the time. They go, where's the documentary on Woody Allen? So maybe we'll see one on Woody Allen soon too.
There has been so much stuff on Woody Allen. It just hasn't been one. And it's just an obsession that New York has. Our next guests are already in the studio, so Romana, I'm going to let you go. But before I do, I just want to get a quick prediction from you. You're a huge Cub fan, and your beloved Cubs start playing Thursday. I want to say the season starts Thursday, so it's going to start before you're next on our show. So are you predicting a triumph for the Cubs this year? Are they going to win?
I usually have to wait. I don't think they can be that successful between in such a short time, but you never know. I usually wait within the first month, and then I kind of make a prediction.
Okay.
I kind of see how it's
holding
going.
back.
Yeah.
I'm not going out there. All right. I don't blame you at all. I'm not feeling the Cubs this year, Romana, on so many levels. We'll talk about this next time. The Ricketts family, not really feeling the Cubs right now.
Well, you're a Sox fan, right?
No, you're
a Chicago fan.
I like
That's like
both.
a wussy way to say.
No, I can't. It's like, why would I pick one or the other? First of all, I'm not even from Chicago, so why? Just because Chicagoans make these distinctions between the Cubs and the Sox, why do I have to do it?
You have to. It's just part of being living in Chicago.
All
you can
right.
like both of them, but you have to like one better than the other.
All right, I'll have to think about that one. All right, Rummana Hussain, it's the Rummana Rundown. The T-shirts are coming. Maybe we'll have some next week.
I'll get on that.
All right, very good. Thanks a lot, Romana.
Thank you.
Our next guest, Kelly Cassidy and Emily Miller. We got a twofer here in the studio. We'll be right back after this.
The Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Sun-Times. For the latest in Chicago and Illinois news, sports, weather, and the latest in national news from a real Chicago frame of mind and real Chicago writers, check out the Chicago Sun-Times. Read the daily paper or online at chicago.suntimes.com. And hey, if you have a little extra cash, subscribe. And by the Chicago Reader. For a deeper dive in the daily Chicago news and for all of what's going on in this city, you gotta read the Reader. Music, arts and culture, film, extensive event calendars, concert listings, and more, including weekly political columns from writers like Maya Dukmasova and, yes, our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader is free in newsstands and at chicagoreader.com. That's chicagoreader.com.
Hi, this is Nick Offerman. I'm taking my show on the road and subjugating an audience to my humor.
All rise, American humorist Nick Offerman is coming September 15th on stage at the Chicago Theater.
It's an evening of deliberative talking and light dance that will compel you to chuckle while enjoining you to brandish a better side of humanity than the one to which we have grown accustomed.
Reserved seats are on sale noon Friday, March 22nd at the box office or at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Nick Offerman live.
Hey, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Vinny J, take it away.
All right, will do. Kelly Cassidy, the pride and joy of the North Lakefront, is in the studio. State Representative Kelly Cassidy. They call her the reefer legislator. Nobody calls her the reefer legislator. I'm the only one who does that, Kelly. Thanks for coming in. And at the same time, they walked in together, the great Emily Mueller.
Hello.
Hello, Emily Mueller. And she is a senior policy director. Did I have that correct?
Advisor.
Advisor.
Yes.
My bad. I can't read my own
Come
writing.
on, Joravsky.
And you really, literally just wrote that down 10 seconds ago.
Well, okay. Did you see how my writing? Can you read that? I can't read. Plus, I only got the D part of it. All right. And
there was no D.
Well.
Ed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the spelling tips, Emily Miller.
Our host, ladies and gentlemen.
Can't
even read his own handwriting.
Hey, at least poor Phil. Did you guys watch the debate last night? No?
No, I was rolling back from Springfield. I was watching the tweets, though. They were interesting. I love the name tag thing. I'm sorry. That was hilarious.
No, that was hilarious. Okay, that's what I was going to get at.
I love
At least
it.
I know that you're Kelly and you're Emily. Poor Phil Fonce. I got all mixed up and started calling Tony Lori and Lori Tony. Yep.
Yikes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And so one of them should have said, Tony's the tall one and Lori's the shorter one. But then they did the...
Right. Lori grabbed a piece of paper and made name tags, which just cracked me up.
Yeah, that's right. Kelly Cassidy, a Lori Lightfoot supporter. We'll get into that in a little bit. D, you got an update for me?
Absolutely, I do. We have a winner for our third and final Nick Offerman ticket giveaway. By the way, still waiting to hear from the winner from our second one. Ant, dude, hit us up. I sent you a message on Facebook. Come on, Ant.
Come on,
You
Ant.
won the tickets. So the contest here, very similar to our name 9 famous Knicks contest that we had. We went to the Facebook page, went to the live streamers first to see if they could name 5 movies starring or featuring Nick Offerman. And looks like we have a winner. His name is Seth. I'm going to go over to the Facebook page. All right, Seth listed his 5 movies. Let's run through them here. Seth, congratulations. You're the winner. His 5 movies. Oh, wait, we got the intro there. Played the wrong song. His 5 movies. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. All right. He says, The Founder.
Oh, yeah, the
Yes.
McDonald's movie.
Yeah,
That's
he
a
was
good flick.
one of the McDonald's brothers.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. His second movie, Hearts Beat Loud.
Love that movie. Have you seen that movie, Kelly Cassidy? Oh, my God. It's every father and his daughter. That's a movie for daddy, daughters. Great movie.
All right, we're doing the 5
How
Nick.
very gendered of you.
What?
Daddies and daughters. I mean, like, I have sons, and they only have moms. Actually, they only have parents. They don't even have...
Yeah, well, no, but this is Nick Offerman plays...
I'm teasing you, love. It's
No, I
fine.
know, but I'm just realize people may not know the premise. He is a widow. What is it when you're a widower, right? Yeah. Anyway, and his daughter is 20, and she's driving him crazy, and they all work it out.
All right, Seth's third movie, The Kings of Summer.
Kings of Science. I haven't seen that one. Have you seen that one?
No.
No, man.
All
All
right.
right, but it's probably a Nick Offerman.
I looked it up. Yep, he's in it. He's in it. His fourth movie, 21, or maybe it was 22 Jump Street. Remember that when they
Yeah,
did
yeah. He was in 22 Jump Street.
Yes, sir.
That movie was not that good.
Oh, okay. And finally, the 5th movie, The Little Hours. Hours. The Little Hours. With Nick Offerman. Seth, congratulations.
I got nothing.
I'm going to reach out to you on Facebook and ask for your information. Don't be creeped out. It's just me, producer Dennis from the Ben Joravsky Show.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, go see Nick Offerman for the September 15th, Sunday, September 15th at the Chicago Theater.
That is correct. All right, thank you very much, D. All right, Kelly Cassidy, Emily Miller in the studio with me. We're going to be talking budgets predominantly with Emily, so sit tight for a while. Emily, although you can weigh in if you want. A lot of political stuff. I want to talk to Kelly Cassidy again, state rep from the north side of Chicago, Rogers Park area. One of the more, I would say, feel free to disagree with me, liberal/progressive members of the State House. Would you agree with that characterization of your political ideology?
I have not yet arm wrestled Will Guzzardi for the title. I'm probably not going to.
Yeah.
I'm just claiming it.
Yeah, you're just claiming. First of all, you've been there
I want the
longer.
belt.
Yeah,
I want to
you
wear.
want the belt.
It should come
Most
with a big
liberal?
belt. Yeah.
By the way, do you draw a distinction between we had this conversation with Romana Hussain, liberals versus progressives? She went on this tangent about white liberals, and I said, well, I think the people that you're alluding to probably view themselves as progressives as opposed to white liberals. Do you see a distinction between a liberal and a progressive?
I mean, honestly, while words matter, obviously, I do think that there's sort of trends almost in that space. But what I'm more concerned about is this sense of there's some grand poobah somewhere that defines who is and isn't a progressive, and who is and isn't a true progressive. And I really think we probably need a bigger tent than that attitude allows us.
We are seeing that, and big time in this Lightfoot Preckwinkle campaign. I know you've endorsed Lori Lightfoot,
but it's come up in other spaces too. This is a growing trend, and it's troublesome.
All right, now you just said something, words matter, and that leads me to something I want to talk to you about. I didn't wake up this morning thinking I was going to be talking to you about this, Kelly Cassidy, but I opened up the Sun-Times today and I saw a headline. Post comparing Nazis to Dems deleted, republished. I don't know if you've seen the story. You're quoted in the story.
I saw it all.
Talk about this. Explain to people what happened.
So earlier in the week, one of our colleagues from the Jewish Caucus brought this graphic and article to our attention that the Illinois Family Institute's political action arm had posted on their Facebook page, and it was a side-by-side comparison of Nazis and Democrats. And he shared it with the Anti-Defamation League and some others, and some of our Republican colleagues, Dave McSweeney specifically, reached out to the folks at IFI, which, by the way, the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated them a hate group.
The Illinois Family Institute.
Yes.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And they took it down, and then within 24 hours, they brought it back. They brought the article back with a new, what they called an improved headline and graphic. Mm-hmm. Their improvement was to take a photo of Auschwitz and place it next to a photo of a Planned Parenthood clinic, and attempt to justify the comparison of a legally operating healthcare center with a systematic destruction of an entire people. Mm-hmm. And which. When I retweeted it, I said apparently the Family Institute found someone to hold their beer. They just doubled down and went a little further. Even I don't know if you saw the part where they in their article they referenced me and described me as a lesbian feticidal maniac.
No, I didn't see that. That wasn't in the article.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Thank you. Yeah, Emily's giving me something. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. What do you even say to that?
There's not a lot to say. I don't mind getting into spirited policy debates. I don't mind that there are folks who disagree with my belief that medical decisions should happen between a patient and their doctor. I do mind when people engage in hate speech and inciting violence. And that's exactly what these people are doing. And I believe that their credentials should be examined. That when you have lobbyist credentials in the General Assembly, and the Jewish Caucus has actually asked for a state police investigation and a review of whether they should have lobbyist credentials, because you bypass security. You can walk freely in and out of this building without being screened. And we've got metal detectors and screening X-rays in the building, and the question becomes, does a group that advocates hatred and violence in this way deserve that privilege?
Well, I feel as though they're picking up where Donald Trump has been heading for a while.
Although these guys have been at it since before Trump.
Exactly. All right. So maybe he's picking up from them and making it more "quote unquote" mainstream, which is scary.
He's definitely making it more mainstream.
But just so folks know, there's an illustration of this since deleted web posting. It's in the Sun-Times, and it has two categories: one, Nazis, and then right next to it is one, Democrats. And this is supposedly what they have in common.
Right.
And this is, in my opinion, hate speech.
It is
no
100%
doubt about it.
hate speech.
So socialism, each one wants no guns. They're just making this stuff as they go along. Censorship, media mind control, both believe that, according to this thing, that's what they want. And then both believe in abortion. And then Nazis hate Jews. Democrats hate Jews and whites.
Right. Which is really fascinating, quite frankly, that they make that distinction.
Talk about that.
It really speaks to this concept of how these folks perceive Jews as other. Because the vast majority of Jews are white, and there are non-white Jews, and we've got Ethiopian Jews in that had to be rescued and brought to Israel. There are Jews all over Asia. So it's true, but the wide perception is that Jews are predominantly white.
My dear friend Karen Lewis, who's listening right now,
right, exactly,
is Jewish.
And when I converted to Judaism, the majority of my class were African Americans. of my conversion class.
Now, Kelly, I don't know if you want to get personal for the moment. I just want to. I did not. When you came here, I go, Kelly, you're in the Jewish caucus. I didn't know you were Jewish. And you said, yeah, with that name, Kelly Cassidy, one would not think Kelly Cassidy is Jewish. Talk a little bit about your decision, your conversion decision.
So, at its very base, growing up in the Catholic Church as a young woman, felt that there wasn't a seat there for me, that I was not welcome there. And as I moved through into adulthood and began to experience other cultures and other worlds, I found that Judaism did speak to me, and the beauty of the religion in encouraging questioning and study and being curious and being mindful in your observation of your faith really spoke to me, and so that has been my spiritual home for more than 20 years. My 3 children are also Jewish. They have all been bar mitzvah. That's just who we are. Was making Passover plans today with some friends. So we have a Jewish home, and we are. I am part of the Jewish caucus, and I'm really grateful to my colleagues in the caucus for having my back in this and for calling out explicitly the attack on my sexuality as well.
Has anybody ever given you a hard time for deciding to become Jewish? Has anybody on any front said, "What? Why would you do that?" Or
so I wouldn't call this a hard time. It's just a funny moment in the life of Kelly Cassidy. When I told my mother I was leaving the church many years before, she said, "I'm going to pray every day that you find a way to let God back into your life." And when I told her I was converting, I was actually more nervous than I was when I told her I was gay. And her response was, I guess I should have been more specific. So she then, but she really embraced it and came up and observed Jewish holidays with us, and embraced that this was who we are and how our life is.
Wow, I should have been more specific. I failed again. It's not so bad, Mom. So when you watch what Donald Trump is doing right now, and the Illinois Family Institute are taking this to a great extreme, is my humble opinion, just flat out hate that they're preaching right there.
There's zero question that's what we're talking about here. And this kind of speech, this kind of hate speech is what has led to doctors being shot outside of abortion clinics. There is a direct line to be drawn between this kind of rhetoric and violence. Mm-hmm. There's no question.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that with Romana, the fact that the right is emboldened now. Trump's emboldened. They don't seem to feel that there's a consequence, or they should be held accountable for the consequences of their hate speech. And when Donald Trump goes out and says, and he's said it several times, Kelly, that the Democrats are, first he starts off, they're anti-Israel, and then he slides into they're anti-Jewish.
Yeah. What
do you think about that?
He says whatever pops into his mind and then justifies it, and there are no consequences. And truly, it does. This kind of rhetoric does scare me. I check a lot of boxes for people who like to hate, and so do my kids. And so it does worry me that this exists in our world right now.
Kelly Cassidy is my guest. Emily Mueller from Governor Pritzker's office is sitting here as well. We're going to talk some budget stuff first, but I have a few things. You get Kelly Cassidy in the studio you want to talk about.
Do it.
And number one on that list, we've been joking about it all the time. I don't know why I always joke about marijuana, Kelly Cassidy.
Because the jokes write themselves.
Yeah, they do.
Like sometimes I accidentally say things, and I'm like, oh man. And frankly, in a meeting the other day, Christian Mitchell said, "Let me be blunt," yeah, there you go, right?
Oh, that Christian's got a million of them.
I'm going to download a rim shot for my phone just so I can play it every time. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why. Let me just finish what I was saying. Kelly Cassidy and Heather Staines in the Senate are the chief sponsors of the legalized marijuana movement or bill here in the state of Illinois. About time, I say. And part of the reason why I make so many jokes about it, Kelly, and you've heard me in this many times, is just the utter hypocrisy that when we deal with the subject of marijuana, and we're going to get into this. I think the Dennis quoted a story from the Tribune that 60 reps have signed a resolution saying slow down. Slow down. Good God. It's been like how many years since we've been started talking about legalizing marijuana in the state of Illinois, but you're going too fast.
Right.
But this notion, it's just hypocritical that like this is some kind of foreign alien thing, smoking marijuana. We have to be careful and cautious when almost everybody has either smoked it or is really good friends with someone who smoked it, or been in a room where it's been smoked, or their kids smoke it, or their parents smoke it, or whatever. And but we still act. We still
act like it's not happening, and we've got our head in the sand around this. And every single sky is falling scenario that anyone can bring to me that this terrible thing will happen if. It's happening today. We're pretending it isn't. We're not addressing it head on, and we're not doing it in a way that is thoughtful and effective. The reality of cannabis in the state of Illinois is we know that there are at least 780,000 people in the state of Illinois who report regular use of the product. And I will say that that's probably conservative, because I know, people underreport, and in particular about a product that's illegal. I mean, heck, people tell their doctor they only have one glass of wine with dinner, and we know they're lying. It's just, this is the reality. And we've got maybe 50,000 patients in the medical program. That's a lot of people who are buying this product
50,000.
on the streets that are buying a product that isn't packaged, tested, labeled for potency, labeled for what it's been treated with, tested for contaminants and additives, sold by someone who can tell you more about what to expect when you use the product. We can address a lot of these issues if we let it come out of the shadows. And so it is frustrating. And the idea of slow down, when we've had 4 public hearings, dozens of town hall meetings, and hundreds of stakeholder meetings just over the course of the last 2 years, never mind how long this has been a conversation in the General Assembly.
What is a stakeholder meeting?
So we have, since Heather and I started this process, we've been meeting with people that we perceive to be proponents, people we perceive to be opponents, and then my favorite category are people we've reached out to who want to know why we want to know what they think. But we've really tried to access everyone who may be touched by this in some way, whether that is law enforcement, industry folks, social justice advocates, criminal justice reform folks, the treatment community. We've really gone pretty far afield to pull folks together and say, this is what what we're thinking, this is what other states have done, this is what other states have suggested we could do differently. What do you think? What is this going to look like in your world when this comes? Because this is a when. There's no doubt in my mind this is a when, not an if. And if we do it right and we do it now, we can address things head on and have an adult conversation about this product that is in wide use in our community.
Do you have any sense of when a vote will come to the floor? When, like you say, it's a when. How when?
We would like to see it happen this session, and I think it's doable. We've now convened a table with folks from the governor's office and stakeholder groups. We're going to break up into working groups now to finish the filling in the blanks. And through the course of all those meetings, I've said several times, there's about 10 questions about this topic. They fall into about 10 categories, and there's variations on a theme, but there's this is where stuff tends to fall. And that was the case when we brought this group back together to start to talk about it. So we know where we need to go.
All right. Now, this is going to be a perfect segue to bring Emily in to talk, because at some point we have to talk about the money that we can raise. The governor is anticipating raising if we do legalize marijuana. But before I do that, I need to ask you, we had a discussion one time you were on the show about the banking needs of people in the medical marijuana industry and how antediluvian our attitudes are. So they can't even get access to banks because of Donald Trump's federal policies. So like I don't know how they're doing it, how they do a payroll, for crying out loud, whatever, because you can't transfer your money into a checking account so you can pay your employees with a check.
It's been really challenging for a lot of folks. And to the money part first, I want to say, what we've learned over the course of our research is if you start from the place of building it around the money, you end up with less money. So we've been really cautious about policy first, and the money that comes will be real, but we've got to make sure we go about it right and don't overtax it, because otherwise you're going to end up not cutting into your street marketplace and not getting people into the legitimate marketplace. In terms of the banking question, there are some banks doing some business with some of the operators in the industry, and that's usually based on pre-existing relationships. There was a bank that had led to about 85% of the industry being banked. And when Jeff Sessions was Attorney General and was doing a lot of saber rattling, they panicked. They decided the risk was too great, and they informed all of those businesses that they would no longer bank them. So folks are doing all sorts of things, moving cash around, using safe deposit boxes, using safes, using gift cards, the rechargeable cards to pay folks. It's a mess, and so we did introduce a bill with Treasurer Frericks this week to try to address that. It's really a federal problem, and it's really got to be fixed at the federal level. What we're doing here is doing the best we can at the state level to make it as safe for the banking community to do business with this industry
without getting
as we
in trouble with the feds.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly Cassidy will stay with us. We're not going to let her leave because we're moving into a topic that she knows a little bit something about too, and that has to deal with the budget and the fair tax. And joining the conversation, Emily Miller, who's been sitting here very patiently listening to Kelly and my conversation. Emily is a senior policy advisor to Governor Pritzker. She also is a person with her own opinions, which she is restraining on. I know you could have jumped in that conversation, Emily.
I have no personal opinion.
Yeah, right.
You had to put them all in a box. Right.
So anyway, we can jump right into this conversation. All right, Emily Miller, you're here. We talked so much about the fair tax in the months leading up to the governor's race, Pritzker governor's race, which Pritzker, of course, won. And the fair tax would be a more progressive form of income tax. Right now, it's a flat 4.95. Do it off the top of my head. Thank you for it.
Very good.
Yeah. And so everybody pays the same rate. It's really unfair that a billionaire like Pritzker or a billionaire around or a billionaire like Donald Trump pay the same rate as a broke radio show host like Ben Joravsky or Dennis. So
actually, I remember being in the studio with you during the campaign, and then candidate Pritzker said, we're going to have a fair tax where Dennis pays less. Specifically.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
Does Dennis get his own category?
Yeah, the Dennis category. All right, and so that's a perfect segue, Kelly. Categories, the issue of categories. Governor Pritzker was doing some great ducking and dodging when he was on the campaign. He didn't want to release the rates, and I know. Let's not go into that one. We all know why he doesn't release the rates. The same reason Lori Lightfoot or Tony Preckwinkle won't release what tax plans they have, because it just get hammered by the opposite
yes, but
team.
Can I offer another perspective on that?
Go ahead.
Just insert a little bit less cynicism into this.
Skepticism, not cynicism. Go ahead.
There is, legislation is run by legislators, not by a governor, and it would be inappropriate for a governor to just declare that things will be a certain way and only a certain way. And I think, just as Representative Cassidy has described this ongoing process with the marijuana legalization bills, I mean, this is a joint process. This is not the governor coming down and saying, these are the rates and so it shall be. This really is supposed to be a collaborative process, and I think that's refreshing.
I was about to say that, not to step on your toes there, but after 4 years of a guy who didn't understand, co-equal branches of government, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. I sit uncynicized. Is that a word? They're de-cynicizing me. But anyway, all right, fine. He had another reason for not revealing his rates. Now, about 2 weeks ago, he revealed his rates, or whatever it was. I can't remember when it was. So go through the rates and explain what the plan is on the table right now.
So first, let's do a little bit of Fair Tax 101, okay? So Illinois right now has a flat income tax, which means that people who make less pay the same rate as people who make as much as a millionaire does. So no matter how much you make, you're paying that 4.95%. Most states that have an income tax change the tax rate depending upon what your income is, so that people who make less pay a lower rate and people who make more pay a higher rate. So that's what the governor's proposed rates involve. So just to do a quick run through of the actual rates themselves, keep in mind that a graduated structure means that the lower parts of your income are taxed at a lower amount. And then as you make more, those higher amounts are taxed at a higher amount. It does not mean that your entire income is taxed at whatever the highest rate is.
Already, that's confusing to a lot of
Sure.
people. You think it's hard to explain TIFs?
Yeah.
Try to explain a graduated
Over
income
the
tax.
radio
Right.
without a whiteboard to
Yeah,
use. Yeah.
yeah.
So for example, the way that this works is the first $10,000 of income. So from your first penny of income to $10,000, you're paying 4.75 on those dollars.
Okay.
After $10,000, so on your $10,001st dollar and on, you're paying 4.9% through $100,000. So again, that's only that section of income. You're paying 4.9% of your rate on that income. Now, in that category alone, you're dealing with about 80% of people
in the state of Illinois.
Right.
So you're
80 to
saying
90%.
80% of the people in the state of Illinois make $100,000 or less.
Yeah,
what you're
about
saying?
that. And then you're going up to from 100,000 to 250,000. That portion only is taxed at 4.95, which is the current tax rate. But you have to remember that your first 100,000 is taxed at less.
I got it.
So right now, all of that money is being taxed at the same amount. Under a fair tax, the lower parts of your income are taxed at a lower amount. And that means that there is something that is called an effective rate, which people's eyes glaze over. But it's really that effective rate that we're talking about when we're trying to think about how much we are going to pay more or less in taxes.
What is effective rate
An effective rate is, right now, everyone's effective rate is the same because we have a flat tax. That's taking out exemptions and complicated things. For purposes of this conversation, everybody pays the same amount. Our effective rate is our marginal rate.
Okay.
But under a fair tax, for example, you have a person, let's say you're making $250,000. The reason that everybody making $250,000 or less pays the same or less is because, as we talked about earlier, that first $100,000 is taxed at a lower rate. Yeah. And so somebody making $250,000 is actually only paying a 4.92% effective rate, because that's when you combine the percentages from the first part of their income and the second part of their income, you get to 4.92, which is less than the current 4.95.
All right, let me ask you this question right now before we go any further with the explanation.
Yeah.
Why bother with the effective rate? Why bother with the marginal rate? Why bother with two separate rates? Why not just have, like, everybody from 0 to 10,000 pays 4.75, and then everybody from 10,000 to 100,000 pays 4.5. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Why have like different rates within the income structure itself?
I mean, I think there's different states do it differently. So some states have 11, 12, 13 different brackets to account for the ranges of income levels. In Illinois and across the country, most of the wealth is concentrated in those higher income levels. And there is actually a piece of this that I want to explain that addresses that phenomenon specifically. So, we have seen income inequality continue to be a huge problem. Millionaires and people making, $1 million and up continue to see increases in their income. And lower income families, $50,000 or less, do not see those same increases in income. That money is going to the top, and it's getting stuck there because our current income tax system does not follow the money. If we modernize and make our tax system more fair and make people paying $1 million or more pay more, which is what a fair tax is, the wealthy pay their fair share, we're going to be able to continue to capture where that income growth is. So one of the things that the governor's proposed rates includes is a special higher rate for people making $1 million or more. So the progressive structure that I just described, the graduated structure, the fair structure, stops when you reach $1 million, because at that point, fairness means that you have to pay a little bit more than everybody else.
And so what's the rate for the highest rate?
The highest rate, if you make over $1 million, is 7.95.
And does that the same the same system where the first $10,000 are taxed at 4.75 and
No, millionaires are straight 7.95 under the governor's proposal, because it's time for the wealthy to pay their fair share. And the beauty of this proposal and of the proposals that have been discussed in previous General Assemblies and by fair tax advocates generally is that 97% of people will see the same income tax or lower. Mm-hmm. So if you're fighting for that top 3%, I think you're a little bit out of touch with what's happening with working families across Illinois.
Okay. And I cut you off. I just want to make sure I understand this. So 100 to 250 is 4.95% is the top rate. Mm-hmm. Is there a rate for people between 250 and a million?
There's a rate for 250 to 500, so that's 7.75. Mm-hmm. And then that top rate, 500 to a million is 7.85.
Gotcha.
Those are all with that structure where the lower parts of their income are taxed at a lower rate.
Got it. Okay.
And then once you hit a million, it's 7.95.
All right. So I'm going to bring Kelly Cassidy into this conversation because this is going to be a political sale. Before we get into whether this raised what I call the Rich Miller question, columnist Rich Miller wrote an excellent column, I thought. I don't know if you saw this one, Emily. Last week was in the Sun-Times about the strategies behind these rates, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get to the political question, Kelly, and that is can you, now you're in a more liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it, district, I understand that, but can this be sold to the voters or will there be automatic opposition to any kind of tax hike?
So, I mean, I fundamentally believe that our role, this job that we go out and literally beg at the doors for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. Hey.
Hi.
Let's try and think about that. Please vote for me.
So, but this job comes with some pretty significant responsibility, and that means leading, and that means continuing that process of being present and being there with our constituents and sharing with them the realities of what we're working on, so that they can be educated and they can come to understand these facts. And it's not fun, and people don't really like talking about it, but the more you do it, you can bring people along. And you know, this is in a complicated way. You know, this is a more complicated factor. But, you know, when we were talking about marriage equality, it was similar. You know, when some of our colleagues were getting pushback within their districts, and we talked about, I'll go with you to your district, I'll meet your constituents, and I'll talk about the realities of this. And when you have those conversations with people, they come around. And that's our responsibility as the elected legislators in districts like mine, they're going to argue that those rates are too low. But in other districts, they're going
to argue that the top rates are too low. Yeah. That's that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, but
that's a liberal district.
It's a very liberal district. And so, but that also means that I'm then available to go to other districts and talk about it too, and help support my colleagues for whom this is a heavier lift. And so all of us have to contemplate what our responsibilities are for those of us who want to see this happen. We have to contemplate what it means to get it to happen. And the same is happening with cannabis. Heather and I are traveling the state, and that's what some of us need to be able to do, to talk about what it looks like to live in a district where income inequality is an issue.
Yeah, and to that point, in terms of explaining to people what this means, the governor has tried to lay out the choices very clearly for people. This isn't just turning to a fair tax system for the heck of it. It's because we have serious financial challenges in the state. We have a $3.2 billion budget hole that we have to figure out a way to fill. There are pieces like cannabis. There are other elements of the governor's budget proposal, sports betting, things like that, that will add revenue. But in the long term, if we're going to fund programs, if we're going to have a budget every year, if we're going to stop cutting, because that's what we have to do is stop cutting. We saw what that looks like after the last 4 years. We don't want to do that anymore. So if we want to do that, we have to change our tax model, stabilize our system, get our credit rating back up from junk. We've got to rebuild this state. And that's what's at stake here. We can cut everything by 15%. We can raise everyone's taxes, low income and upper income people, by a whole percentage point, or we can give the 97% of the people a tax cut, either pay the same or a tax cut. And that's just the most fair way to do this. If we can achieve all those goals and rebuild our state for the future, that's the way to do it.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Emily. But I'm going to talk about this psychological impediment that you're up against. And Kelly, I'm going to get your comments on this one. In a local race, local aldermanic race, so it's not really addressing it's not addressing at all the state tax. One of the candidates, a guy named Matt Martin, who's running the 47th ward in a runoff, has proposed to some form of a corporate income tax, which would be structured along these same lines, with the well-to-do paying the highest rate. I don't even know I haven't seen the specifics of his plan, so I don't even know if
This for the city or the state?
City, for the city. And his opponent, a guy named Michael Negron, has come back. I know this because I'm in the ward. I get the flyers blasting it. And when I read the flyer blasting Matt Martin's plan, it reads like something that would come out of Bruce Rauner of the Chicago Tribune's editorial board. And it's saying you're going to force people out of the city. You're taxing the middle class too hard. And we should look for ways to cut before we start thinking of new taxes. And so this is going on in a quote-unquote liberal ward fight where two Democrats who would tell you they're both progressives, and the one, whether he realizes it or not, is repeating the talking points of Rauner and the Chicago Tribune's editorial board, that somehow our tax on the well-to-do is really a tax on the middle class. Kelly Cassidy, how do you fight that? How do you fight like this entrenched notion that any kind of tax hike is somehow or other detrimental to working class people and middle class people, even if it's directed at the well-to-do?
Right. And that's a huge challenge, and it takes those smaller conversations, right? Folks have become pretty accustomed to the equal and opposite flyers that come in. This one's a tax and spend liberal, this one's going to cut, and they don't want to hear the details. People have come to a place of not really wanting to get down into the weeds. See what I did there?
You're very blunt.
Exactly, and we'll bake this in. So
joint effort by all of you guys.
Wow. Dennis with the zinger.
So it really does involve those conversations at the doors or in coffee shops of oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, but do you know that the Illinois state government is actually in the bottom third in terms of the size around the country? Oh, no, I didn't know that, because nobody put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Those moments where you just have to have those conversations, and we have to get people back engaged with their government, whether we're talking state or local, so that we can get past those talking points, because it really is a crisis at all levels, and getting folks more engaged is critically important.
All right, now, Emily, there's the Rich Miller question. Rich Miller, no relation to Emily Miller.
That's correct.
All right, but Rich wrote a good column last week. Again, I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, I urge you to read it. And one of the points he raised is whether or not this tax hike will raise enough money to meet all the financial needs that the state of Illinois has.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take issue with the way that you've characterized it. This is a fair tax where 97% of people will pay the same or less, and the wealthy will pay their fair share, which will actually mean that they pay more in those cases. So that out of the way.
Important that.
What was the second part of the question? I got so excited about that.
No, I really love it. You jumped on me. All right, Ben, get it right. All right. The second part of the question was, will the fair tax raise enough money to meet our obligations?
It will be combined with other pieces that are in the budget for this year. Keep in mind that the fair tax will not be, assuming that it passes the legislature, this legislative session will not be on the ballot until November 2020 during that presidential election, and will not be able to be put into effect until the following calendar year. So January 1st, 2021. So no, this will not fix everything between now and then. And I would say there is no such thing as one fix. This is going to take a lot of work, a lot of budgeting, and over the next couple years to rebuild. It's not going to fix everything on its own. It's a part of the solution. It's a big part of the solution as we move out into the future, particularly when that higher income level continues to grow and we're able to capture that income growth.
All right. Emily Mueller, Kelly Cassidy in the studio. This is a podcast, not a radio show, and that means we can go overboard every now and then. And I got you two in here. We got the door locked. Got a few more questions I want to ask Emily and Kelly before I let them out. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll do a little more discussion about the fair tax.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for the Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show.
Man.
Mr. Joravsky, man, take us to the weekend.
You know, I love that song. That's Kelly Cassidy on the keyboards, ladies and gentlemen. When she's not passing reefer legislation, she's playing the keyboards.
She's good.
Oh, she's really good.
Multi-talented after all.
KC in the sunshine.
Talking and playing.
At the same time. Actually, it's not Kelly Cassidy. I always forget that he's going to play it, Kelly, and I love that. I don't know where he found it. He found it somewhere in a street corner.
Just in the music library.
All right, we forced Emily Miller and Kelly Cassidy to stick around for a bonus 10 minutes or so because I'm utterly obsessed with fair tax.
Me too. It's funny you'd say that.
Man, Emily Miller and I had like 12 conversations about it in the year 2000. Emily, let's come on and let's talk some more fair tax. All right, so you did a little bit of this, Emily, before we went to the break, talking about what exactly has to happen before these new rates are implemented.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not as easy as Michael Madigan ordering this one to do that. Oh, I know he never orders anybody to do anything. Or John Cullerton twisting arms to get him to vote this way or that way. Just explain to folks what has to happen before the fair tax is implemented.
Sure. So this first part is entirely legislatively controlled in terms that it has to pass both chambers with a supermajority. It does not go to the governor because
Supermajority means what?
71 in the House and 36 in the Senate.
Got it.
That would have been really embarrassing if I got that wrong.
That's all right. You're good at math. Yeah.
Budget guru forgets numbers. So that has to happen. And then at that point, it goes to the ballot. Where either a majority of the people voting on the question or 60% total
Right.
have to.
Very weird.
Right. It's a high bar.
Yeah.
It's a high bar, and you have to.
Wait, say that again. A majority or 60%? You already lost me on that one.
Because there's a difference between people who vote generally and people who vote specifically on that question.
I see. I got you. Okay.
There will be election attorneys involved.
Oh, on both sides.
I'm not one of them.
They're the only ones who are going to benefit from the fair tax. Casper. Michael Casper. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
But this is going to be a long process. There's a lot of education that's going to go into this. So this passing, the fair tax passing the legislature to go onto the ballot is just the first step. We have to educate taxpayers and stakeholders across the state until November of 2020 when that election happens so that they really understand what's going to happen. Why is this such an important thing for this state? And So it's our responsibility to lay out what the other options are, which I said, we can cut everything or we can raise everybody's taxes. We have to restabilize, and this is the way that we do that.
So just to be clear, the first budget that passes in the next month or so, 2 months or whatever it is, presuming that Pritzker's different than Rauner and he actually passes a budget, that first budget will not be a fair tax budget. It will have the old regular old flat tax budget, correct?
Correct.
Just so everybody understands that. Okay. All right. So Kelly Cassidy, you laid out the numbers. 71 pro votes in the House. 36 in the Senate. Thank you, Emily Mueller, for that brilliant mathematics. To get it on the ballot for November 2020. Man, things are never easy, okay, explaining politics.
Exactly.
All right, so you need 71 votes.
Yeah.
In your humble opinion, Kelly Cassidy, do those 71 votes currently exist in the House?
Why have a super majority if you're not going to use it? We have 74 Democrats. And most of them won talking about the need to fundamentally change our tax structure. I know it's a scary vote, and that's where I go back to, having those conversations now with our constituents, getting them ready for this, making sure they understand what we're really doing. And to Emily's point, most of my constituents think that vote's it, we're done, and then magically, the new tax structure is in place. So I frequently have to do this is a multi-step process. And then back to the fact that those of us who have the luxury of a safe district for a vote like that have to make sure that we're there to support the folks that need the backup. I've killed many a car doing that, and I'm ready to kill the one I'm driving now.
Well, my dear friend, Michael Joseph Madigan, not really my dear friend, I just like saying that, has always been real cagey when it comes to these votes, Kelly. You know how he plays the game. So, yes, you have 74 Democrats in the House, but his own equation, his own formula as well, this one would get in trouble if he or she voted for anything that resembled a tax hike, even if it's not really a tax hike. So I'm going to let that person get to vote no. I mean, he's a little more lenient in how he lets his members of his caucus vote than, let's say, Rahm Emanuel is with aldermen in the Chicago City Council. So that said, under the rules that have dictated this issue in the past in the General Assembly, do you still think you can get those 71 votes?
We have 74. I think that the folks that powered this blue wave, that got us to these supermajorities, that got J.B. Pritzker onto the second floor of the State House, they expect that we're going to fix this. Mm-hmm. They expect that this is one of the things that's going to happen. And I think if we fail to do that, then we failed them, and we'll pay.
What about Republicans? Is there going to be any Republican that votes for at least to get it on the get it on the ballot to, get the voters an opportunity to weigh in on it?
I hope so. That's really not up to me.
Right. I mean, if there aren't any Republicans, it won't be for lack of trying. When I get asked about the Reproductive Health Act all the time, do you expect to have Republican votes? That may be the very first bill I pass that doesn't have a bipartisan roll call. Maybe this will be the second.
Wow. Yeah.
I do want to point out, though, there are things about this, about the governor's proposal that are designed to appeal to people who might otherwise not find it interesting. So, for example, some of the representative's colleagues are in districts that have extremely high property tax rates. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that's built into this proposal is an increase in the property tax credit that people can take on their income taxes. So the governor's proposal bumps up that the credit that you receive on your income taxes from the amount of property tax that you pay. That money goes directly back to you, the homeowner. It does not rely on freezing property taxes, which local governments have found to inhibit their ability to fund services the way that they want on a local level. We don't want to get involved with what those local politics are. We want to just put money back in the pockets of homeowners, and that's what increasing that property tax credit does. There's also a child tax credit. For the first time, the state of Illinois would have a child tax credit, which nationally we have, and a few states have done that as well. But that is a tax credit that's available to families who have children. It phases out as you get into higher income. So it's really targeted at those low and middle income families with kids who need a little bit extra. And really, those are the folks who, under this proposal, will see a little bit more, a couple $100, that really means a lot. If you're a low or middle income family, that couple $100 may not seem like much to somebody else, but it does seem like a lot to them. So I would caution people before jumping on this idea that that amount of money doesn't matter. It matters. It matters to people.
And that's where we get into that idea of those conversations, that people have to be able to be informed about what's really happening in this proposal rather than what the Tribune says is happening.
The Tribune, the Tribune's editorial board, I should say. All right,
yes,
now,
fair enough.
So, Kelly, last question then before we head off for the wild blue yonder of a weekend. Mayor Rahm, at some point, one of his farewell speeches, said he believes that we should eradicate the language in the Constitution that protects the pension rights of pensioners that's been upheld by the Supreme Court. And he says this is absolutely a fundamental thing we have to do. He was finding his inner Rauner at that moment and advocating that. As, of course, he's walking out the door so he doesn't have to bear the consequence for it. I'm not saying that Mayor Rahm is going to lift a finger on that issue, but do you have some concerns if you start talking about opening up the Constitution to change the Constitution, that two can play that game? And so you could see a movement from the Republicans to do what Rahm says and to put it to the voters to eradicate the language that protects pension rights of pensioners.
Look, just because there's a process to do something that's morally wrong doesn't mean you should do it. A promise is a promise. It's really that simple. Like, it's in the Constitution, but that's not the reason to keep it there. The reason to keep it there is that we made this promise to these workers. This is what they put their lives into. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a process by which we can go back on that promise. It's wrong.
So you're not afraid that by
I don't like the idea of opening the Constitution generally. No, I mean, I agree. You're right. Two can play at that game. You get down that road, and we've got people trying to reverse marriage equality. We've got people trying to attack choice. We've got, you can pile on and have all sorts of stuff happen there. But, fundamentally, when to that specific question, I'm opposed to it because it's wrong.
All right, Emily and Mueller, before I let you guys go, any last thoughts, any last points you want to make before I let you head out?
She's right.
I kind of miss the old Emily and Miller who had an opinion about everything.
I do. I just stated it very clearly. She's correct.
All right, very good. Emily and Miller, always fun talking politics and budgets with you. And, of course, Kelly Cassidy. I'll bring you both back. Next time I'm going to have a driver come get you at your door, Kelly.
Dude, it's just, I'm cursed. You're in a new location that's supposed to be easier to get to, and then there's construction every step of the way.
Oh, my God, you sound like Lori Lightfoot talking about how our city is just too congested and too hard to get around. It's Kelly Cassidy, Emily Miller. I want to thank Rummana Hussain, the Rummana Rundown, a big popular.
I'll get those T-shirts.
Get those T-shirts, man. Rummana killed it today, as she always does. Great show, great week of shows, and of course, the man, the myth, the legend who made it all possible. Oh yeah, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. 618 is the area code. Did you know the ladies all love him for his body and his mind? Okay. That's the doctor.
It's from a movie. Awkward. It's from a movie.
No, it's from the Super Bear Shuffle, the Super Bowl Shuffle. Emily knows what the Super Bowl Shuffle is. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow. Oh, no. See you Tuesday, everybody. Take care.
Hey, and remember, the Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by unions. Big thanks to the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor.